Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
if all humans suddenly lost their ability to lie, which industry wouldn't collapse? Comedy would survive somehow because awkward truths are still funny. Although, as a former stand-up, most stories are edited and sweetened, or entirely fabricated, in service of the timing, entertainment factor of said jokes. You just frame everything as hypothetical. No. Imagine if this happened. I'd be walking to some guy's house. Engineering. Lies only get in the way. Can I get a timeline on that? Nope. Lol. Some we hear between 3 weeks and 3 years. Agriculture. People need to eat regardless. No, it will collapse. Tomatoes won't grow if you don't tell them they're the best fruit and vegetable. Journalism would be a lot more impactful, or everyone would just refuse to say anything and there would be no quotes. Journalism is printing something that someone does not want printed. Everything else is public relations. Quote. Lawyers. The justice system would still exist. People think lawyers wouldn't exist, but very few lawyers actually lie. They are masters at interpretation of wording, but they'd lose their license to practice if they were ever caught lying. Tons of criminals would get away with crimes though, because one of the police's best weapons is tricking people into thinking they have information or evidence when they don't, to try to get someone to confess. If you're guilty, you never have to lie, you just don't say anything, period. Quit breaking the law, asshole. The pen is royal blue. Maths will survive. Engineering will be better. I think all of STEM would be great. No stealing credit, no exaggerating your results. It would be pure science as it's meant to be. Plus maybe people would trust scientists again once other people couldn't lie about it for their own political or economic gain. Since I work in this field, the children's educational publishing industry, aka people who make library books. Editing to say that non-fiction books are what I am leaning on here. All books I work to create are diligently fact-checked before publishing. The unintended downside, I still love children's books and movies. Heck, just finished watching Shrek last night again, haha. You are never too old to enjoy good books, no matter what the intended audience. And I watch Shrek like 5 times a year, so I get it. Closing parenthesis. If Redditors suddenly lost the ability to ask the same question 1,000 times, what would be the first subreddit to collapse? Gone Wild. This guy reads, Gone Wild, for the questions. Closing parenthesis. Do my boobs look okay? 23F. Literally a perfect pair of tits. Askreddit 1000%. Edit. Also Peter explains the joke too and its variants. I'm a mechanic, we don't lie to our customers. Sadly, I can't speak for all mechanics. From my experience, you are an outlier. Our family has been going to the same mechanic for over 25 years. All of our vehicles are Toyotas and Surahis, which is why he wanted to work on our truck for the first time all those years ago. Tip to today, he now owns the garage and it is one of the most sought-after garages by customers in town. However, regardless of how busy they are, if we call him with a problem he says, bring her by tomorrow. Absolutely unbelievable service in an industry full of scumbags and scam artists. Almost all, but I would say science and research. As a scientist, things would get a lot better. Everybody over-exaggerates the importance of their work in grant applications and in research papers. There'd unfortunately be a mass firing of all the industry scientists who can't lie to their business degree bosses and go, yep, I'll look into that, when they suggest something wholly ridiculous and impossible to do. Libraries. Librarians are the truth tellers and holders. Aviation would largely be fine. Engineers and mechanics have a huge paper trail ensuring honesty, and pilots, flight attendants, controllers, dispatchers are constantly communicating. A lie from any of them just turns into a problem pretty quickly. Maybe the management or airport operations would be impacted, but the frontline part of flying would be largely unaffected. Medicine, mostly truth matters more than ever there. Would make the doctors' lives 100 times easier when patients can't lie to them. Also because it's never lupus. The artists would be just fine. The art scene and industry on the other hand. Cough money, cough laundering, cough tax, cough evasion. Rap music would not survive. I got 5 problems and they all my taxes. I was born and raised in the hood in an upper middle class neighborhood to married parents with degrees. My penis is adequate and some women find me attractive. I'm fine with violence but rarely engage in it directly. I have some money but am not hugely wealthy. I'm a decent rapper. As a fiction writer I often say my favorite hobby is lying. Is fiction inherently false? For instance, if you're world building you set a foundation of rules and truths inherent to said world, then therefore everything you say about that world would be true in universe, but not our own. IDK though I'm kinda high lol. Teaching would be great. I would pay to see that show. My wife's class would be crying before lunch. It said we couldn't lie, not that we can't be selective about the truths we tell, smiley face. Wow, I saw how hard you were working on this. Can be a true statement even if the product is dreadful, and I really care about you learning and having a good experience at school is also true, even if I'm talking to a kid I personally think is ADCK and who causes me to utter unrepeatable prayers to the gods of laryngitis. I don't lie as a teacher, but my students lie to me, parents lie to me, admin lies to me, counselors don't for the most part, curriculum salespeople lie all the damn time. My life would be 100% better. Honestly, lawyers. The best lawyers never lie. They know how to tell and present the truth to get what they want. If they lie in a contract they wrote, well, that's just trouble. Everyone would be going to lawyers to figure out how to deal with only being able to tell the truth while saying what they want to say, and only that. Maybe coroners. It might make a lot of disclosures more emotionally upsetting. A lot of death workers who talk to surviving loved ones will say someone who died suddenly did so peacefully and with no pain. That's not always true, especially when the cause is an accident of some kind. ETA, technically a lie, but a kind lie to make a sudden loss much, much easier to bear. They passed quickly, not immediately, not painlessly. Did they suffer? Their suffering is over now. Nuclear engineering, medical care. Religion and politics would implode. Science is literally the only thing that would survive. I would argue even scientific research would be impacted. Data has been falsified many times to get papers published so researchers and professors can keep the grants. Scientific research is a broken system and a large reason why I left it and didn't go for a PhD about a decade ago. It would make research so much better, as long as we count exaggeration of significance and intentional but technically truthful misleaders, lying. Politics, yes, but religion, no. It's hard to define that as a lie. A lie is knowingly saying something you know isn't true. If you fully believe what you're saying, it'll never be a lie. Even if it isn't the truth. At the very least, it would wipe out the cult established purely for money and power. Politics would still exist, but we'd be forced to discuss actual issues. Accounting. Accounting has to be honest. Financial analysts, however, would disappear in a second. Arthur Anderson begs to differ. Academia would be better than ever. Veterinary. My cats lie all the time. They are fed constantly. Medicine. Hopefully your doctor or nurse isn't lying to you. We aren't, but we are presenting things in a way that buffers the bad news. Give it to me straight, doc, is it cancer and is it bad? Well, we aren't sure yet. Let's run some tests and we can discuss when they are back. Becomes, given your presentation, I'd be stunned if it wasn't late-stage cancer where we've got no good treatment options. Let's run some tests and discuss your options. The interesting distinction here is between industries that depend on active deception versus industries that just benefited from it. Most of what we'd call essential services don't actually require lying to function. Skilled trades, plumbing, electrical, construction, are almost entirely results-based. The pipe either stops leaking or it doesn't. You can't lie to physics. Agriculture and food production are the same. The crops grow or they don't based on what you actually did to the soil, water, and seeds. Nobody's deceiving anyone at the core of the process. What would thrive? Therapy and medicine. A large percentage of what makes those fields inefficient is that patients lie about symptoms, habits, medication compliance, lifestyle. An honest patient is infinitely easier to treat. A lot of misdiagnoses would vanish overnight. The comedy comment above is interesting because fiction is actually different from lying. It requires both parties to know the statement is false, or at least not asserting truth. Imagine if this happened, is still available. Narrative fiction, movies, novels, all preserve fine. The real casualties, sales, marketing, public relations, a lot of financial services, most of electoral politics, significant chunks of law, HR, and the entire performance layer of corporate culture where people say things they don't mean because it's expected. No parts of law would be affected. Lawyers don't lie, at least not any more than any other random profession, and it's severely dealt with. Criminals have the Fifth Amendment, so asking them anything that implicates the guilt is immediately off the table. On the civil side, sure, people lie, but probably not at rates that would generally affect most practices. I've been practicing for 15 years and I've never had a client lie to me. They have no reason to. We have attorney-client privilege and I explain to them why it's important to tell me everything, and what happens if they don't. For example, if they lie to me and that somehow finds its way into a court document and I find out it's a lie, I'm obligated to tell the court. PR would be huge. It would center on people who could create non-lie responses. People who could spin or point out different views. The people who could do that and were good at it could probably name their price. Imagine how easy it would make politics, though. Have you ever had any kind of sexual contact with a child, or do you wish to have sexual contact with a child? Framing the question in that way makes it impossible for personal beliefs, i.e., morons who might say the child consented, which is impossible, wouldn't be caught in a question of raped a child. It sure would be refreshing to get rid of the fucking liars in charge of the healthcare industry titans, particularly insurance companies. As an doc, I'd breathe a sigh of relief as the diagnostic burden of my patients become quartered. Everyone lies about how much it hurts, about what they took, about what they didn't take, about adherence to a regimen, about whether they actually have a family member willing to drive them home. It may be from pride, altered consciousness or malingering, but everyone lies. For real, I just had a patient that was ashamed to admit he was an alcoholic. He was literally having DTs from not drinking for a couple days after he had an NSTEMI.